I built a fence for my dog. Nothing fancy, nothing loud. Just a clean, classic little picket fence, the kind you picture when you hear the word home. 2 weeks later, I got a certified letter telling me it was illegal. Not against taste. Not, we prefer something else. Illegal, according to a neighborhood HOA that apparently had the power to declare war over the color white. And here's the part you're going to think I'm making up. I replaced that fence with a wall made out of interlocking plastic bricks. Not the cute little knee-high kind, either. A real, heavy, reinforced, 4-foot-tall wall that stretched across my whole front yard like a monument to petty bureaucracy. And the HOA president? She called the police on me. Twice. You can laugh. I did too, eventually. But at the time, it felt like getting shoved around by someone who'd been waiting her whole life to tell other people what to do. My name's Nate. I'm a freelance motion designer, which is a fancy way of saying I spend most of my day at home arguing with fonts and clients who think "make it pop" is helpful feedback. The real boss of the house, though, is my dog, Pepper, a chunky, sweet mutt with the heart of a lion and the attention span of a goldfish. Pepper's biggest hobby is sprinting toward danger like it owes him money, so after one too many near misses with the delivery guy's van, I decided we needed a real boundary. Something safe, something simple, something that wouldn't make my place look like a prison yard. So I put in a small white picket fence. The Saturday it went up was perfect. Coffee brewing, birds doing their little morning gossip in the trees, Pepper snoring like an engine on the rug. I remember standing there with a mug in my hand, looking at that fresh-painted white, thinking, man, this is it. This is the I have my life together moment. I wasn't trying to impress anybody. I just wanted my dog safe and my front yard to feel like mine. Then the sound changed. That crunch, crunch, crunch of hard shoes on gravel, slow, deliberate, like someone walking to a podium. I peeked through the blinds and saw a guy in a polo shirt holding one envelope like it was a court summons. He wasn't FedEx. He wasn't the mail carrier. He had the posture of a man who enjoyed rules. He knocked twice, sharp, like punctuation. I opened the door, and he held out a clipboard without smiling. Sign here. For what? Certified delivery, he said, already looking past me like he had 10 more yards to ruin before lunch. I signed. He handed me the envelope and walked away without another word. I stood there staring at the return address. Cedar Ridge Community Association. Great. The fun police had found me. Inside was a letter written in that special HOA dialect, the kind that uses big words to make petty control sound like public service. It started off polite in the way a lawyer is polite when they're about to take your house. Dear homeowner, it has come to the attention of the Architectural Compliance Board that an unapproved perimeter structure has been erected at your property, 17 Juniper Court. My stomach sank before I even got to the threat. They said my fence violated Section 6, Rule D, something or other because all front yard barriers had to be continuous, non-transparent, and within the approved natural palette. I reread that 3 times like the words might rearrange themselves into sense. Continuous, non-transparent, natural palette. My fence had gaps. That's literally what pickets are. And it was white. Like, white. Bright, clean, classic white. I looked out the window at it and felt this weird mix of disbelief and insult, like someone had walked into my house and told me my couch was morally wrong. The letter ended with an ultimatum. I had 10 days to submit a replacement plan for approval. Failure to comply would result in daily fines of $75, retroactive to the date of notice. $75 per day for a fence I built for my dog. And at the bottom, in tight, aggressive signature, was the name of the board president, Lorna Vance. Lorna. Just seeing the name brought back a memory from the first month I moved in. I'd been outside trimming my hedges when a woman in a perfectly pressed blazer marched up like she owned the sidewalk. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't say welcome. She held a measuring stick. She crouched down, measured the height of my trash bin lid, stood up, and said, "Your bin is visible from the street. That's a violation. You'll want to correct that within 24 hours." Then she turned and walked away like she'd done me a favor. That was Lorna Vance, the kind of person who thought community meant control and control meant her. Pepper wandered over and pressed his head against my leg, tail wagging. He didn't know what an HOA was. He just knew his yard was finally safe. I scratched behind his ears and stared at the letter, feeling that hot little ember of anger wake up in my chest. I told myself I'd handle it like an adult. Step 1, a phone call. I found the number on the HOA portal, took a deep breath, and dialed. She answered on the first ring. Lorna. No hello. Just her name, like a gavel. Hi, Ms. Vance. This is Nate Walker at 17 Juniper. I got your letter about my fence. I think there might be some confusion. There is no confusion, she said, flat as a countertop. There is compliance, and there is violation. You are in violation. Right? I hear you. But I'm just trying to understand the wording. Continuous and non-transparent. It's a picket fence. It's kind of supposed to have pickets. She let out a small breath that sounded like she was disappointed in humanity. Gaps create visual clutter. The neighborhood aesthetic is not optional. Okay, I said, trying to keep my voice light. But the color thing, white is pretty standard. It's not like it's neon. White is not within the approved natural palette, she replied. We maintain harmony. Your fence disrupts harmony. Harmony. I looked out at my quiet street. Identical mailboxes, identical lawns, identical beige houses, and thought, lady, this whole place is a copier machine. I built it for my dog, I said. He runs. I'm trying to keep him safe. That is your personal matter, she said. You have 9 days to submit your revised plan. Goodbye. Click. I stared at my phone like it had betrayed me. All right. Phone diplomacy failed. Next up, email. In writing. With logic. With photos. Like a normal human being who believed facts still mattered. I wrote the most polite email I have ever written in my life. I explained the purpose of the fence. I referenced traditional American residential design. I attached pictures of nice neighborhoods with white picket fences, the kind with million-dollar homes, and actual trees. I even found a clause in the HOA docs about heritage-inspired features and politely suggested that a picket fence qualified. I hit send and felt like I'd done something reasonable. Her reply came 6 minutes later. 6. Mr. Walker, reasonable is a term often used to justify violations. Attached is the approved palette. Additionally, heritage-inspired applies only to features documented prior to the community's founding. Your matter is closed. Submit an acceptable plan. She'd CC'd the entire board. Attached was a PDF that looked like it was designed by someone who hated joy. 5 shades of beige, 2 shades of brown, and 1 sickly green that felt like sadness with a paint code. I sat there staring at the screen, and for a moment I felt small. That's the part people don't talk about with HOA stuff. It's not just annoying. It's humiliating. You start questioning yourself. Like maybe you really are the problem for wanting something simple. Then my friend Vince called, because I'd apparently texted him something like, HOA war has begun, and he knows me well enough to take that seriously. What happened, he asked. I told him everything. The letter, the call, the palette of depression. Vince laughed. Dude, just paint it brown and move on. No, I said, and surprised myself with how hard I meant it. It's the way she talked to me. Like I'm a kid. Like she's the principal of my front yard. Vince paused. So what are you gonna do? And that's when my eyes drifted to something open on my laptop. Not the HOA portal, but a video I'd been watching to distract myself. A guy building a life-size sculpture out of those interlocking plastic bricks, the kind you snap together. It was flawless. Smooth. Solid. Like a real wall. I leaned closer to the screen. No gaps. No transparency. And the colors. I sat up slowly. Vince, I said, voice low, like I was confessing a crime. Those bricks come in brown. No, Vince said immediately. No, don't. They come in green. I continued, ignoring him, my brain already sprinting. They come in tan. They come in terracotta. They come in exactly the colors she sent me. Vince went quiet. Then he said, You're not thinking what I think you're thinking. I looked at the HOA PDF again, at the beige swatches, the ugly moss green, and I felt something snap into focus. Not rage, exactly. More like clarity. If she wants continuous, non-transparent, natural palette, I said, I'll give her continuous. I'll give her non-transparent. I'll give her natural palette so hard it'll haunt her. Vince started laughing, the kind of laugh that means he knows it's insane, but also kind of beautiful. You can call it petty. You can call it childish. But in that moment, it felt like the first time someone like Lorna Vance was about to realize I wasn't an easy target. Now, having the idea is one thing. Executing it is another. You can't walk into a store and buy enough bricks to build a 35-foot front yard wall. This wasn't a weekend craft project. This was logistics. Math. A level of obsession normally reserved for people building doomsday bunkers. I made a spreadsheet. Of course I did. I calculated length, height, thickness, and how many bricks per layer. I found a wholesale supplier that made architectural-grade interlocking bricks. Same concept, different brand. They sold bulk by the crate. Then I stared at the number on the checkout screen and whispered, "Oh no." It was just under 90,000 pieces. I clicked purchase anyway. My card didn't decline, but I swear it whimpered. Then came the real problem, stability. I wasn't about to stack plastic like Jenga and hope it survived the first storm. If I was doing this, it had to be safe. It had to be real. So I called contractors. "Hi," I'd say, trying to sound normal. "I need a quote for a reinforced footing for a front yard barrier." "Sure," they'd say. "What kind of barrier?" And then I'd have to tell them. "It's a wall, made out of interlocking plastic bricks." Click. One guy hung up. Another thought it was a prank. One laughed so hard he had to put me on hold and came back like, "Man, my boss says no." I almost gave up. Not because Lorna was right, because the whole thing was starting to feel ridiculous. Then I got Hank. Hank ran a small concrete crew and showed up in a dusty work truck with a face that looked like it had seen every kind of stupid project and survived them all. He stepped out, looked at my white picket fence, looked at me, and said, "So, what are we doing?" Inside, I showed him my plan. Rebar posts set into concrete, spaced for reinforcement, the bricks filled in certain sections with sand for weight. I slid the HOA letter across the table. He read it. Then he read the pallet PDF. Then he looked up at me. A smile spread across his face like he'd just found religion. "This," he said slowly, tapping the paper, "is the funniest revenge I've ever seen." "It's not revenge," I said automatically. He raised an eyebrow. "Buddy, it's revenge." And then he said the words that made it real. "All right, I'm in. But you're paying for the comedy." A week later, a freight truck rolled into Cedar Ridge like a dinosaur looking for violence. Air brakes hissed. Neighbors appeared at windows. Pepper lost his mind barking like we were being invaded. The truck door opened and revealed pallet after pallet of boxed bricks. I watched the curtains across the street twitch. I didn't need binoculars to know Lorna was watching. Hank's crew tore out my picket fence in under an hour. That part hurt, I won't lie. I'd worked hard on that fence. It had felt like a symbol of settling in. But as soon as the last post came out and the trench for the footing was cut, my sadness turned into adrenaline. That night, Lorna marched over to my property line like she was crossing into enemy territory. Clipboard in hand, jaw tight. "Mr. Walker," she snapped, "you have not submitted a plan. What is happening here?" I put on my calmest smile. "Foundation work. Standard procedure for any compliant barrier. Safety first, right?" Her eyes flicked toward the pallets. "What materials are those?" "Fully compliant materials," I said, and I swear I could feel the universe grinning. "Continuous, non-transparent, natural pallet. You'll love it." She made a sound, not quite a scoff, not quite a growl, and marched away. We built for days. Snap, snap, snap. The sound was addictive. The wall rose in layers, brown, tan, moss green, terracotta. From far away, it almost looked like stone. Up close, it looked like a giant toy fort, and that was the point. Neighbors started coming by. Kids on bikes slowed down and pointed. One older guy down the street just stood there with his arms crossed and said, "Is that what I think it is?" I nodded. "HOA compliant." He laughed so hard he had to lean on his mailbox. By day 4, the wall was waist high. By day 6, it was nearly done. That's when the fine notices started showing up, one per day, like angry little love letters. I taped them on my fridge. Vince came over, saw them, and said, "You're collecting these like trophies." "I am," I said. "They're my fan mail." The day we placed the final brick, a little crowd had gathered, not a protest crowd, more like a neighborhood watching fireworks. Hank's crew stood back, grinning. Pepper sat at my feet like he understood history was happening. I pressed the last 10 piece into place. Snap. Applause broke out. I didn't expect that. I felt my face get hot, and for a second I had this strange emotion, not triumph, not anger. Relief. Like I'd finally stopped letting someone talk down to me. That relief lasted exactly 40 minutes. Because Lorna arrived like a storm. She didn't walk. She charged. Binder clutched to her chest. Hair perfect. Eyes wild. "That is a toy," she shrieked, pointing at the wall like it had personally insulted her ancestors. I kept my voice steady. It's a barrier made of interlocking polymer bricks. It's a toy for children, she snapped. I couldn't help myself. The box says ages 8 and up. I'm up. Behind me, Vince made a choking sound trying not to laugh. Lorna stepped closer. This is an eyesore. It violates the spirit of the bylaws. I nodded slowly. Let's do the checklist. Is it continuous? She glared. Is it non-transparent? I leaned down dramatically, peering as if I might see through it. Nope. And is it within the approved natural palette? I pulled out a laminated card. Yes, I laminated it, with her exact palette colors. I held it up against the wall. Brown, tan, green, terracotta. All right here. Her face tightened. You think this is funny? I think it's written, I said. You wrote it. She made a sharp inhale, then said the line that still makes me shake my head. I'm calling the police. And she did. A cruiser rolled up. 2 officers stepped out, one older, one younger. The younger one took one look at the wall and bit his lip like he was trying not to smile. Lorna launched into her speech about property values and community standards and childish structures and public nuisance. The older officer listened, then turned to me. Is it on your property? Yes, sir. Is it stable? I knocked on it. Dull thud. Rebar and footing. He nodded, then looked at Lorna. Ma'am, this is a civil HOA matter. We don't enforce aesthetics. But it's ridiculous, she said, voice cracking. He sighed. Ma'am, being ridiculous is not illegal. The younger officer turned away, shoulders shaking, and I knew he was laughing. The cruiser left. Lorna stood there, defeated for a moment, then hissed, This isn't over. She was right. The next morning, a video of the police visit was online. One of my neighbors had filmed it and posted it with a caption like, HOA finally meets its match. Within hours, it was everywhere. Local pages, neighborhood forums, even a short clip on a morning news segment. And suddenly, my wall wasn't just my wall. It was a symbol of every person who'd ever been nitpicked, talked down to, fined over nothing, made to feel small in their own home. 2 days later, a notice appeared in everyone's mailbox. Emergency HOA meeting. Topic: Unapproved structure at 17 Juniper Court. The clubhouse was packed. I'd lived there a year and never seen more than 12 people show up for anything. That night, there were easily 100. People standing in the back, arms crossed, waiting. Lorna opened with a PowerPoint. I'm not kidding. Slide 1 was a picture of my wall with a big red X over it like it was a virus. She talked about harmony, about standards, about protecting property values. Then she asked if I had anything to say before they voted on maximum fines and forced removal. I walked up with one poster board, the exact bylaw, printed large. No slideshow. No drama. I'm not here to talk about feelings, I said, and I meant it. I'm here to talk about words. Because words are what you use to control people. And words are what you're stuck with when someone finally reads them. I pointed to the rule. Continuous, non-transparent, natural palette. It doesn't say wood. It doesn't say vinyl. It doesn't say not plastic. It says what it says. And I built exactly what you demanded. Murmurs rippled through the room. Then something happened I didn't expect. People stood up. One guy said, Last month you fined me because my kid's chalk art was visible from the sidewalk. A woman said, You threatened to lean over a flower pot. Someone in the back yelled, You made me repaint my door because it was too cheerful. The room erupted. It wasn't even about my wall anymore. It was about years of petty control. A motion was made to accept the wall as compliant. Hands shot up. The vote wasn't close. Then someone else stood up and said, If we're rewriting anything, we should start by rewriting the board. And the room got quiet. A vote of no confidence was called. Lorna's face went pale. The hands went up again, and this time it wasn't just about a wall. It was about power. She lost. Now here's where the story gets messy. Within a month, Lorna moved. New leadership came in. The fines were dropped. The HOA rules were under review. The wall stayed. But the neighborhood split. Some people treated the wall like a landmark. Kids took pictures by it. People laughed when they drove past. Other people thought it was an embarrassment. A few said it would encourage others to push boundaries, like that was a bad thing. And I'll be honest. There are days I look at that wall and think, did I go too far? Did I become the thing I hated, someone making a scene, forcing the neighborhood to deal with my choices? Then I remember the way Lorna spoke to me on the phone. The way she dismissed my dog's safety like it was irrelevant. The way the rules were used like a weapon, not a guide. And I think maybe the real problem wasn't a wall made of bricks. Maybe the real problem was a system that only works when everybody stays quiet. So let me ask you, because I genuinely want to know what you think. Was I wrong for taking the HOA at their own word? Was the wall a childish stunt, or was it a fair stand against petty power? And if you've ever lived under an HOA, you already know, there's always a Lorna somewhere, measuring something that doesn't matter, waiting to tell you you're not doing life correctly. Drop your take in the comments. Tell me if you think this was justice, or just pettiness with a paint code. And if you've got your own HOA horror story, I want to hear it, because I promise you, the line between community standards and control freak empire is thinner than a picket fence.